Hi, I'd like to begin this with land acknowledgement. Um, we begin by acknowledging that we're filming on traditional land that's been inhabited by the indigenous people from the beginning. As settlers, we're grateful for this opportunity to be here, and we thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Long before today, there have been indigenous peoples who have been stewards of this place. In particular, we acknowledge the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. And to learn more about the traditional land you may be viewing this program from, please visit native-land.ca to learn more about where you live and your region. So to start, hi, I'm Jessica Platt. I'm the first openly trans woman to play professional hockey in North America. I'm one of few trans women to compete at the professional level, and I played in the CWHL for the Toronto Furies for 2 years until the league folded. And the following year, I played with the PWHPA, which is the Professional Women's Hockey Players Association. It's made up of heavily Olympic caliber players. So I feel lucky to have played with and against some of the best players in the world. And I honestly feel so privileged to have been able to travel around and gain some incredible experiences playing the game that I love. And while I have many incredible experiences, I want others to be able to have them in the future too. Because we live in a time where trans women's participation in sports is seen as highly controversial and a highly debated topic. And it's being used currently as a weapon to attack trans rights as a whole. That's really problematic. Personally, I find extreme importance in celebrating all the positive things in my life because it's my belief that it can lead to a better state of being, and it helps you to overcome the negativity the world can send our way on seemingly a constant basis. I wasn't always this way, though. It took me years to learn to accept who I am, to be my authentic self, and to really feel like being seen as different isn't a burden. The way I see it, many people spend their entire lives trying to figure out who they are and what they stand for. And, I've been through so much, I've endured so much, but now, thankfully, I know exactly who I am and what I stand for because of my journey and my experiences, and I feel grateful for that. So a little background on me. I grew up in Brights Grove, Ontario, just outside of Sarnia. I learned to skate on an ice rink in my backyard, like the typical Canadian kid hockey story goes. And quickly, once I started playing hockey, I was asked to play rep, which is travel hockey. It was something that I loved to do more than anything else in the world, really. Hockey quickly became my passion. When I was playing, everything seemed really easy to me. My dad used to always tell me that I somehow just knew where everyone was on the ice and what I had to do. So it was my happy place, but that, was only for a while. When puberty came about, I saw how people's bodies were changing. I saw how mine was changing, and it didn't seem fair to me. I knew that I felt different early on, but I didn't quite know how to put it into words, and I didn't know how to describe it. And I definitely didn't know that it was okay to feel how I felt. Growing up playing hockey, it was ingrained in me at an early age that I was supposed to be a certain way. I was supposed to be this tough kid. I was supposed to show no pain, no weakness, which essentially meant, for a little boy, pushing down your emotions and just, being tough, stoic, and doing what you're told. And pretty much to be like everyone else. The hockey culture when I was growing up was highly toxic. It wasn't really a place for anyone who didn't fit a certain criteria of how a young boy should be. Growing up in the locker room, I heard countless misogynistic, homophobic, sexist, and other problematic comments that really drilled into my head that I couldn't let out parts of the true me and that I had to be someone else. I couldn't show that I was different. So on the ice, everything was great. It was my happy place, my escape. Everything was easy. I could focus on the game, nothing but the game, but off the ice. Hockey had become something that was really holding me back from being my true self. And for a long time, I struggled with finding out my identity because of this. And so off the ice, I was seriously struggling. But I put on a facade for everyone else to see because I knew what they expected of me. But I kept playing the game just out of sheer love for the game. And eventually the time came for me to either play in a beer league or to quit playing hockey. I tried one season in the beer league and realized that I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't deal with the locker rooms. I couldn't deal with the talk that I was hearing. I couldn't deal with being miserable. So I had to hang up the skates, and I wanted to find a way to be happy with my life. This was a period of learning, and it took quite some time. I was really grappling with my true identity and the identity that I'd created for myself over the years. I was in a really dark place at this time. I drank way too much, way too often, and I didn't see a future for myself. I had some close friends at this time, but I lost a lot of people that I considered my close friends because I was really searching for validation and I couldn't see the positive in life. And I felt like people were just giving up on me or they were annoyed with me. And I guess, I pushed them away or they didn't know how to help me. So eventually they stopped trying. But eventually, I had some close friends who stood by me through thick and thin. And with their help and, a little support, I decided to reach out to a counselor who really helped me realize that I needed to do something to change my life. So I decided to move away. I went to university at Wilfrid Laurier and I started to pursue my transition. I didn't know what to do at first. It's scary. You don't know where to go. So I set myself an ultimate goal, which was to transition. And from there, I set myself smaller goals, one small thing at a time to hopefully eventually get me to my ultimate goal. This decision to transition ultimately saved my life, and I can't stress enough how important it is to reach out to people when you need help. You're not alone. There are people that care. There are people that will help you. There are people that love you. And, if you're feeling like you may be in need of assistance, there are helplines you can call, crisis services. You can seek out therapists, talk to your friends, your family. I have no shame in saying that I needed help. I 100% needed help. And I have no regrets in asking for help because it's helped shape me into the person that I am today. So during my transition, I had an incredible support system in my roommates, my friends, and eventually my family when I told them that I was transgender. And I know this isn't always the case, unfortunately, but you're going to find people that will be there for you, that will support you, and that will love you for exactly who you are. Because, family is not always blood. It's great when your family supports you, but that's not always going to be the case. Family is also chosen. Personally, I'm lucky enough to have my biological family support me and love me, but I also have my other family, which is my friends and the people who supported me before I had told my parents, and when I really needed help, they are also my family. I learned a lot through my transition. I learned about myself. I learned about the importance of being true to yourself and really how to find my path to happiness. But during this time, I also learned a lot about the importance of equality. Previously, I had many of the privileges that were afforded to white cis men, and it was truly eye-opening to see a different experience as many of these privileges disappeared. So from then on, I always try to pay attention to the privileges that I still have. I'm white, I'm straight passing, cis passing, And, I try and keep that in mind because not everyone has these privileges. So I want to do my best to be aware of this in creating safe, positive spaces for all, not just people like me. While I was transitioning, I began to run. I started to get in shape as I was starting to like my body, like the person I saw in the mirror, and I actually wanted to take care of myself. I played Ultimate Frisbee at the time, and I experienced firsthand the effects that hormone replacement therapy has on your body. One summer I went from being one of the quickest people on the field, male or female, to struggling to keep up with people that I could easily outrun before I started. And being a competitive person, this was very difficult for me mentally. But eventually I adjusted to my new body's normal, and I kept pushing and really just tried to be the best version of myself possible. It wasn't until 3 years into my transition that I got a job teaching kids how to skate and play hockey, which really reignited my love for the game, and I had a really strong desire to play again. I was literally dreaming about it at night, which is kind of funny, kind of sad. I don't know. It depends how you look at it. But at this point, I held off. I didn't feel safe or comfortable entering a shared change room setting, so I held off on hockey. But once I was at a point where I considered my transition complete, I was happy with my body and I felt comfortable going into those change room settings, I started to search out how I could play again. I had no intentions of originally playing professionally. I just wanted to play hockey, any level, anywhere, whatever. I just wanted to play. I found a local women's league in the summer, and I decided to try it out. I had no idea how it was going to turn out because I had recently undergone gender affirmation surgery, and I went from competing in duathlons to essentially struggling to climb stairs basically overnight. My recovery personally was so long, and I only started running again 6 months post-surgery. And 8 months post-surgery, I got on the ice for the first time. But week by week, I was getting better to the point where I was excelling in this league. It was like I never forgot how to play hockey. It just had to take time to come back to me. So being as competitive as I am, I wanted to see how far I could go. Now that I was training, I cared about my body, and I was motivated to be the best that I could be. I wanted to really test myself. I had no idea what was out there for women's hockey players. I had to do a lot of research and find out what was out there because there's little to no publicity in comparison to the men's game. We've made some strides since then. I've seen a lot of progress in the past couple of years, but we still haven't made enough. We're working on it, but we'll get there eventually. I found the CWHL and I decided to try out for it. Unfortunately, I got a respiratory infection right before training camp. So my first week was subpar, and my second week they saw a huge improvement, which obviously made sense. So I didn't make the team, unfortunately, but I was called up for 4 games that year. And I had trained relentlessly leading up to the camp, trained harder than I'd ever trained for anything in my life before. I was really disappointed, but playing those 4 games showed me that I could really play with the other professionals. So I kept training relentlessly that entire year, and I made the roster the next year. I came out publicly in January of that season, which was the 2017-2018 season, and I knew that I was going to face criticism from mostly the men's hockey community who knew nothing about trans athletes except, their preconceived ideas that trans women somehow have an inherent advantage because of how they're born. And they also know nothing about women's hockey except their misogynistic ideas that, any man or, the majority of men can be better than any women's hockey players. Both of these ideas are ridiculous. And so I knew there was going to be negativity, but I also knew from my upbringing with, very few LGBTQ plus role models that I could do more. I could do more good. And I knew that giving someone a concrete example of someone succeeding, someone playing pro sports, being unapologetically themselves, and most importantly, being happy, that I could make a difference. I know when I was young and I was struggling with my identity, that it could have and likely would have changed everything for me to see what was possible. Now, I share my story now to show the importance of being true to yourself, because when I was growing up, I rarely saw anyone else like me. And anytime I did, it was on TV, where they were the punchline, they were a joke, they were someone that people made fun of, they were a freak. So seeing these portrayals and hearing how people talked about these portrayals, really, I thought to myself, why would I want to be like that? Why would anyone want to be like that? So I really pushed down who I was for a very long time. And even a couple of years ago, the majority of the stories I would hear would be about someone being disowned, abused, harassed, beaten, or even murdered, with, the numbers being higher if you're a trans person of color. The majority of murders for trans people of color the majority of murders of trans women are trans women of color. So, to have positive role models is extremely important. I wouldn't have been able to see the positive impact that my coming out could have had if I hadn't had positive role models. Harrison Brown came out in the NWHL as a trans man the year prior to me, and I saw how positively the women's hockey community reacted to him. And I wouldn't have seen professional sports as an option if I hadn't years earlier seen Fallon Fox, competing in MMA, or if I hadn't seen Chris Mosier's Nike commercial. I got really sick of these negative portrayals, and I wanted to show people an example that once you accept yourself and you embrace your authentic self, that you can find confidence, love, success, most importantly, to me, happiness. I know it's hard to listen to someone simply saying that it gets better. I heard it countless times over the years, but I thought that maybe by sharing my journey, talking about my struggles, telling you my experiences, that it could be more proof than just words. I'm not going to tell anyone that it's easy, but I'm going to say that it's absolutely worth it. I spent a long time being miserable, seeing no future for myself. I didn't expect it to make it to 25 years old. But once I began to live my authentic life, everything changed for me. Over time, the world opened up. I saw so many positive futures for me that never existed. I just had to work to get there. And during this time, I've learned, the importance of mental health. And one of the most important things we can do for ourselves is take care of our mental health. And, that can mean a lot of different things. For me, I get busy. Sometimes I get overwhelmed with, fighting for the trans community, for the LGBTQ plus community, for the women's hockey community. Sometimes it's exhausting. So I have to recognize when I'm overextending myself and take a step back. I need to take a break, and then I can come back at it with full steam. You need to recognize when you need to step back, when you need to take a break for yourself. You also need to recognize when you need to seek help from either your family, your friends, or a professional. Taking care of your mental health can make all the difference in the world. When I actively took time to figure out who I was and what I needed to do to be happy, I found it. So take that time to, try and figure out yourself, figure out what you need to do to be happy. We're so pressured in this society to act a certain way, to be a certain way, to look a certain way. Sometimes we lose ourselves. And, society shouldn't dictate who we are. That just adds to the daily stressors of life. Life is stressful enough. We are who we are. We're all human. We deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. So if you're not, you're going to need to protect yourself and get out of that situation. I found happiness when I was able to be true to myself, and I like to think that, everyone else can do the same thing. As a trans woman playing professional sports, I want others coming after me to have an easier time doing so. I found nothing but support in the women's hockey community, which was incredible. My coaches, the league, my teammates, opponents, the fans, nobody had anything negative to say. So I truly believe that this community is special. And I think it's something that people can look at as a starting point of how to really be inclusive in their league, their workplace, anywhere really. I faced a lot of negativity though, people thinking how I was born, that I had no right to play women's sports at all, let alone at the professional level. And these people, for the most part, aren't going to change their opinions no matter the information provided to them. A lot of these people largely think that men are inherently better and that trans women would have the advantages that men have because of their testosterone levels. They don't realize and won't listen to everything that a trans woman has to go through to compete, especially at the elite levels. Trans women undergo hormone replacement therapy, sometimes surgical procedures, and follow sets of rules aimed to level the playing field. There are a lot of people out there fighting for these rules, fighting for inclusion, and fighting, to make things fair. Trans women have to follow a lot of set rules, and it levels everything out. If anyone, if people think that trans woman is better because she was, born a man or something like that, it really takes away from the countless hours of work an athlete puts into their training to be as good as they are. It takes away from the original talent they may have. It takes away from hours and hours and hours at the gym. And it really just tries to boil it down to one specific thing. I often wonder why these people would think that a trans woman would undergo surgery, years of hormone replacement therapy, as well as facing potential violence, murder, especially if you're a trans woman of color or a trans person of color. Hatred, discrimination, harassment, rejection from your family and friends, and lose all of the previous, male privileges you may have had just to play women's sports. I hear often that trans women will dominate women's sports, but, since 2004, trans athletes have been allowed to participate in the Olympics, and none have medaled or even competed. Even if a trans woman manages to be an elite athlete, it's not like there's fame and fortune waiting for them like in men's sports. Nobody really hears about a lot of the women that I play hockey with. They hear about players in the NHL. These people the NHL players make, millions, while, at the top of my salary range playing professional hockey was probably about $3,000, which probably didn't even cover gym costs or gas for the season. Yes. So, some trans women, they want to play sports, and that's okay. And trans women belong in women's sports because, simply put, trans women are women. There's a lot of negativity going on in the US right now, and I personally think that's really disgusting. Trans women in sports are being targeted in an attempt by white cis men to address a problem that doesn't exist. I think that they're using trans women in sports as a way to attack the rights of trans women, trans men, and anyone who doesn't conform to their strict gender binary. As a trans woman and a trans athlete, this scares me because sports have given me so much over the years. Besides the incredible experiences I've had, they've taught me how to be a team player, how to work with others. They've instilled a hard work ethic in me and a desire to be the best version of myself. And that translates to pretty much every aspect of my life. I always want to be the best I can be at whatever I'm doing. And that all started with sports. And I don't want these experiences to be taken away from young kids who just want to play sports with their friends. I don't want them to be told that there's something wrong with them. I don't want them to be denied the ability to be who they truly are, to have to choose between being themselves and playing a sport that they love with their friends. Because the ability to be my true self saved my life. And I truly think that if it's taken away, it'll be killing people. I don't like to end on or dwell on negativity, so I'm going to share some of my favorite things that I've done personally that I owe to being my authentic self. Currently, I'm engaged, soon to be married, and I'm moving into a house that we just bought. I have two dogs and a cat. I scored a goal playing professional hockey in my hometown in front of my family and my friends in an arena that I played in pretty much my entire life growing up. I've traveled to China twice for hockey, which was an incredible experience. I threw a first pitch at the Blue Jays game. I wrote a chapter in Bob McKenzie's latest book. And in 2019, this one's really exciting for me. In 2019, just before COVID-19 hit, I was part of Team Trans in a tournament in Boston. That is this jersey right there on the left. Team Trans, we were also in the New York Times. It was great. Team Trans is the first hockey team made up of entirely trans people. And the feeling of playing sports with people who shared similar experiences to me was something that I will never forget. It was like we formed an instant connection, and it was truly one of the most meaningful, incredible experiences for me. I had a lot of amazing experiences playing with Toronto and then playing with the PWHPA, but this is up there for me. I've been able to tell my story to countless people. I've been able to talk to and meet so many amazing people and hear so many different stories. I'm proud to be able to show other people like myself that they can be successful, they can live a life they've always dreamt of, and most importantly, they can be happy. Feel free to follow me on Instagram or Twitter. My handle is jplatt32. If you want to learn more, there's a short video called Unmasked with Jessica Platt on YouTube. I think we really need to work on changing the old ways of thinking. By watching this dialogue, you're obviously on the right track. You want to learn, you want to, expand your knowledge. We need to be people of action like that. And we need to accept and celebrate people for who they are. And lastly, I want to tell anyone struggling with their identity what I would have wanted to hear. There's nothing wrong with you. And when you learn to accept yourself for who you truly are, you're going to find acceptance, love, confidence, success, and most importantly, happiness, like you couldn't believe, and that you've always wanted. It's not always going to be easy, probably won't be quick, but it's going to be so worth it. You may not believe that you're loved, but you're worth it. And if you believe in yourself and work hard, you can do anything you set your mind to. You don't always have to do what's expected of you because, positive change doesn't come from being told what to do and who you are. You know yourself better than anyone else, so follow your heart. And, stay safe, be yourself, follow your dreams. And thanks for listening.